Hi friends, welcome back to the Really Living podcast. Today we are starting our season 2 and this is the first episode, so I'm really excited to get into the conversation for today.
Me too.
As you can see, we have two wonderful ladies with us. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Hi everyone, I'm Ashley.
Hey guys, I'm Lauren.
Today we're going to be discussing a topic that really hits home for young people, especially young people, and especially when you are in the age range that we find ourselves in. Okay, and that is dating.
What age
Dating.
range are we in though?
I don't want to say, but I know. You guys want to share what
No, it's
age you
okay.
are?
It's okay.
That's why I wanted to be safe. So whether you're single, whether you're dating, whether you are confused, whether you are waiting or just trying to figure out how to do relationships well, this episode is exactly for you. So let's be honest and let's get into it right away. It's super easy to get drawn to people by how they look, right? When we go to the Bible doesn't, God doesn't focus on the looks or on the outward appearance, but his focus is always on the heart, right? So God is not fixated on charm or image, and unfortunately it seems that we are. Right? He sees the heart, and if we want something that is lasting and something that honors him, we've got to learn to see people the way that he does. Okay? So I'm gonna ask you two questions and we're gonna get into the conversation. So here's the first question. Why do you think that us as humans are so easily pulled toward the external or the outward appearance first?
You know, it's interesting because we're saying, you kind of opened up with the idea that God looks at our heart. He doesn't judge us based on our appearance. You know, he wouldn't not accept us because he didn't, you know what I mean? Like, he accepts our heart. Whereas when he did create, you know, Adam and Eve, there isn't much talk about the interaction they had. It's just that they laid eyes upon each other and they were in love. There was an attraction, and they, you know, were married that night. And so I think that there still was something put in us to be attracted to our partner or to the person who could potentially be our partner. So I think that is just in us as humans. Unfortunately, there's different varying levels, I guess, of what everyone would say is like conventionally attractive versus beauty is in the eye of the beholder. But I do believe that, yeah, it's kind of in us to have a physical attraction to the person that we're interested in before being interested in them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because I do find that males are more focused on the physical than females. So I almost want to, and I do want to throw the question back on you because I do wonder this, because I think women naturally maybe are more drawn to like a guy's personality because they want to feel more so of an emotional connection. Right. Obviously physical does still matter to a woman, but I think that for males, the physical parts matter more. So I'm curious as to like what you think that is.
I thought I was the one asking questions. I guess I'm also answering questions. So I do believe that we are wired differently than women. And I do believe that it is important to be physically attracted to the person that you are thinking of pursuing, right? I hope that nobody here chooses to get married to somebody that they're not attracted to. In fact, I had a conversation with a pastor a couple of years ago, and he said, make sure that you marry somebody that is better looking than you. It was interesting that he mentioned that, but that was an advice that came from a pastor that I respect. So interesting. So yes, I'm saying this to emphasize that yes, it is true. Us men, we tend to be attracted by what we see first before taking a step. And I think that is a good thing, but that is not the most important thing. Okay? So that's my answer to your question.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, second question. What helps you focus on someone's heart instead of just what they show on the outside? How can you get in there, in that heart?
I think what helps me to focus on the heart is just asking those questions right away. Like, I automatically want to know are you in the faith? Are you a Christian? And then that will kind of lead the conversation as it needs to go. I think it's important for me, at least, to like have the same faith, and then everything else I can kind of like move towards organically. But if we weren't of the same faith, then it may be more difficult for me to build a connection, because his heart is likely going to be in a different place than my heart's going to be. So I think that would be my number one thing is, are we of the same faith? We don't have to necessarily be the same denomination, but we both have to have a love for God that will make me feel like, okay, your heart is in a similar place that my heart is in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think time also kind of helps to figure those sorts of things out. If you don't spend a lot of intentional time getting to know somebody, you're not going to really know their heart and therefore their character, and if you guys actually fit well together. So I think having that time set apart of being intentional, just talking on the phone, and also I'm thinking of more of like a long distance sense, or comparing like long distance relationships to people who are in close proximity to each other, how it really forces you to get to know somebody's heart in that regard, because you don't have as much physical interaction. So I think you can almost figure out things a lot sooner, because you have to talk a lot more and communicate that much more to stay connected to somebody. So yeah, I think overall just talking and having the time to be able to really flesh out who that person is, and also even inviting other people into the situation as well to speak wisdom into the people that you're getting to know, so that you're not just coming at things from your one perspective with rose-colored glasses, but you see things from other points of view, and all that can factor into making a well-structured decision.
Yeah, absolutely. Very wise, very wise. So let's talk about the we're just friends, but also texting constantly.
Okay.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but have you guys ever been there?
What do you mean? Like texting?
By
constantly?
texting, I mean, you're constantly texting a specific person, but you're just friends.
Okay, so like guys and girls being BFFs, essentially.
Sure.
Like, but in this situation, am I okay with this platonic friendship? Or am
Sure.
I like interested in this person, or they're interested in me?
So let's say that you're not interested, but it's just a constant. Like you're constantly texting this person, and so pretty much it's not labeled, but it's definitely not casual either.
Okay.
Okay, so do you think that friendship between guys and girls can stay truly healthy when, and I'm gonna say you guys are not interested, and yes, I'm gonna speak from the guy's perspective after, because I do believe, I'm not gonna share it yet. I wanna hear what you guys have to say. But do you think that a friendship like that can stay truly healthy between guys and
Totally.
girls?
Yes, I do.
Well, and I know, Ashley, that you are a little bit different from Lauren in that sense. So share your perspective, and then I want to hear Lauren.
Yeah, I do think, I know it's a controversial statement. Can guys and girls be friends without one or both parties catching feelings? I think in the initial part of a budding friendship between a male and a female, you can go through that thought process of like, ooh, like, do I find this person attractive? Like, could I see them as a potential partner? So I think every new friendship goes through that stage. But I also think you can get through that, and where you both decide, to not pursue, each other, and then you can ride out the rest of the friendship completely platonic, and it's fine. Yeah. And I think it also depends on context. Like if you're both single, texting every day, no issue. I think as soon as one person gets into a relationship with somebody else, I think that's when you need to start setting boundaries and, recognizing that that's not appropriate anymore. So do I think it's possible? Yes.
I mean, is it possible? Of course it's possible. There's obviously people that are doing that. Ashley, you're a living testament to having some close guy friends. For me, it's just not my experience. So from what I think of, my relationships, my close platonic relationships are all females. And so that's the only dynamic I really understand when it comes to a close friendship. When I also, maybe I don't have a lot of characteristics that, I'm not into a lot of guy things, I guess. I don't really watch sports. And that's a big connector for a lot of just male friendships in general. And if you're a female who does enjoy watching sports, I think that can kind of help that bridge. Or if you play video games, I know there's lots of guys who are into video games. So I think if you're a girl who enjoys some of those aspects, it makes sense that it would be easier for you to bond with guys. But that's just not my experience because I'm not into those more, traditionally maybe male things. And so if I'm talking to a guy, I can't like sit there and relate to him on a platonic level. So for me, it would be like, no, like I'm interested in you. If I'm going out of my way to like text a guy, like I'm interested in you because I don't want to sit there and talk to you about basketball. So if I'm talking to you about basketball, then I'm interested in you.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think also maybe context helps. Lauren has a sister. I was raised with two brothers. So I think that also could factor into it too.
Yeah.
Maybe.
No, totally, because that makes sense. My reality was so grounded in mostly females. I have my mom, my sister, a majority of my cousins are girls. I have more aunts than I have uncles. So my life was very female. Whereas like Ashley just said, you have two brothers. And so they're both into sports. And so that would like kind of make your surroundings be a bit more male oriented. And so you grew up with that. And so it just makes sense that the dynamic between us is different. So to answer the question, is it possible? Yes. But I think the circumstances are they have to fit into a certain box.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, now speaking from a guy's perspective, okay? I also believe that it is possible, depending on the context. For example, if you grow up with that person, if you've known them for a while, right? But if you've known this person for not too long and they are constantly reaching out and you're responding, I truly believe that it is highly possible that the guy will develop feelings.
Totally.
And if he continues to, text and receive text from you, trust me, that's a recipe for a guy catching hard feelings for you. So, maybe I'm generalizing, but I truly believe that if a guy is showing that much interest by constantly being there and answering is because there is an intention behind what he's doing. That's what I believe.
Yeah, and I think that just highlights the differences between like male and female brains, because even talking about our examples in the beginning of like, females are maybe more driven by personalities rather than looks, whereas Jose was kind of more like, listen, guys are usually going to be more driven towards looks. And it's kind of the same thing with this. We're like, well, it's based on circumstances. If you're the type of girl that is into those types of things, there's no problem. Whereas Jose's saying like, honestly, if a guy is going out of his way to like really be messaging a girl, he probably likes her. So it's interesting, the different dynamics. You could see how like God did create us differently, but that we're compatible.
Yeah. And it's also interesting to see how like two people can be talking every single day and one can catch feelings, aka the male, and the other cannot, aka the female, And I think that goes to show that I was actually listening to a podcast the other day and they were talking about how men fall for women in this sort of context, texting all the time, because maybe some of these men don't have these sorts of conversations or dynamics with their male friends. So as soon as they start having all of this interaction with a female, they're all of a sudden like the emotions are there, they're drawn, And so I think that maybe just could be a thing that could be worked upon on the male side of being more intentional and having more of a deeper connection with your male friends, so that every time you have an emotional conversation with a female, you don't just jump and fall for them and assume that, they're the one,
And that's a great advice for men, because it is true. A lot of us are not, too vulnerable with each other. We do friendships on a superficial level in a way, right? We tend to focus on things that, ultimately are very superficial, like sports. Sure, but, when you were sharing that, I was thinking about me growing up and being in elementary school and also in high school. I would say that 80 to almost 90% of my close friends were girls.
Wow.
And it was exactly because of that. Yes, because I just resonated to the way that women naturally are more, in touch with their emotions, and they listen to you and they understand what's going on.
Yeah.
As, in the other, like, guys are not really wired that way.
Yeah.
And it takes more from us to be that way. So I think that's what drew me to have more girl friends than guy friends.
Yeah.
So interesting. Cool. All right. So let's say that the friendship is very solid, and then there is mutual interest. Okay. So now you're catching feelings, and the guy, he's also starting to feel and experience some things in his heart. So the next question is, are we ready to actually move into something more? Right. This is the thing. The Bible says, let all that you do be done in love. Real love, this is the kind of love that honors God, right? So not one that manipulates or rushes, but one that is intentional and that is sacrificial. So before stepping into dating, it is worth asking 2 questions. And I'm going to ask you these questions and let's discuss this together. Number 1, what are some signs that somebody is ready for a relationship with purpose? And what do I mean with purpose? It means one that has an end goal in mind, right? So that end goal, I hope that for you will be, you know what? I see myself with this person, right? We've known each other for a while. We have had conversations. I've gotten to know his heart. He knows my heart. So now, what are some signs that you're ready for a relationship with purpose? And let's start with Laura, and then we'll go with Ashley.
A relationship with purpose to me is that the person is creating the time to have me in their life, because everybody's really busy, you know, but you create the time for the things that you want in your life. And so whether you're going to the gym, if you're someone who's like, I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m. every day, you have to discipline yourself to do that. You don't, you know what I mean? And you have to want to do that, because if you don't want to, you're not waking up at 5 a.m. to go to the gym. So it's the same thing with a relationship. If you don't want this person to fit into your schedule, then they won't. But if you want them to, they will. So I think that's a really important thing for me, being in my a time in my life where I'm in a career. The people that I would be interacting with are also in a career, so we're very busy. And so if they can create the time to have me in their life, then that's a good sign for me that they're ready for a serious relationship.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's a good one. I would say for me, I knew personally that I was ready to start exploring relationships with people when I knew that I was content with being alone. Because I definitely went through a season of life where I did not feel that way. And so once I reached the point where I knew that I was good with just me and God specifically, and also feeling content with the relationships I already had in my life, I knew that I was ready to explore adding somebody else into that equation, you know, and trying to build with somebody. And also even just coming from the perspective of I'm not going into something selfishly, but selflessly, of thinking more so about what I can give to somebody else as opposed to what I can just take from them. So, yeah.
That's excellent. I like that. Here's another question in relation to the same thing. Have you ever sensed God saying to you, not yet, even when your emotions were saying, go for it?
Yeah.
And how are the dynamics in that, you know, in those conversations with God?
Not fun, because you just feel ready, you know, like, but then look, hindsight's 2020, like I actually wasn't ready, you know. But and especially I think also, you know, we've had a very busy summer with a lot of weddings and events and things like that, and so it can also make you think about, okay, like when is your turn going to be next, or when is it going to be your turn next? And so yeah, just it was definitely something that I had to walk through on a daily basis. I think even sometimes I'm still walking through that. But overall, like I think it's better to, I totally stand by this, that I would genuinely would rather be alone than walk into something that God does not have for me, that's not a part of his will for my life. So I'm accepting of the not yet, because I know that if it were to be up to me, like I would be down a very different path that would probably not end up well. Not probably, it wouldn't end up well. So I really only want what God has for me. So I've accepted the not yet.
Okay. Yeah. And I think that it's true. That's such a hard, you know, reality to live in. Something that I try to do is remember that my heart is deceitful above all else. And so something can feel really good, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's for you. I think actually something that you've said in the past is that you can kind of have a connection with almost anyone if you really like put your mind to it. If you have an attraction to someone, you guys are on the same, you know, faith journey, you can probably find a way to like be connected with that person and like see a future with them. And so that's why our hearts can really be dangerous. And so for me, it's just accepting that my heart isn't necessarily going to be what I want to be my leader. I want God and my brain to be my leader. God did give us wisdom. And so asking him for the wisdom, and even maybe asking him for intervention. If I feel not strong enough to do something, but I want to follow his will for my life, you know, I've asked him for intervention in the past, because I know that if I were to just follow my own will, I would just get hurt. So yeah, just recognizing your weaknesses as a human and allowing God to be your leader.
Absolutely. Excellent answer. And there's a phrase that I've used before, which says that God chooses for you what you would choose if you could see the end from the beginning. And I really like that because it speaks to my lack of knowledge about what's going to happen and just about how powerful and all-knowing God is, right?
Yeah.
And another thing that is hard about trusting in God is that when He becomes your Lord, it requires me to give Him my will, right? And that is probably the hardest thing that we can do as humans in relation to our connection with God, right? It requires me to give Him my will. But if I call Him the Lord of my life, I have to trust that He knows exactly what's best. So with that in mind, we are gonna enter, we're almost done. We're almost done here in our conversation. So before we move forward in a relationship, we need to pause and to reflect, okay? And there are 4 questions that I like to use as a filter, and I want to hear which one resonates the most with you, okay? So I'm gonna mention the 4. First one, why do I want to be in this relationship? Why? Number 2, am I spiritually and emotionally mature enough for this relationship? Number 3, is now the right time? And the last one, what do I actually bring to the relationship? So which one resonates with you the most? And you can expand a little bit on that.
I would say probably is now the right time. I think that I'm at that time in my life, like Ashley said, like we've been going to a lot of weddings, everybody's kind of starting their life. And I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm jealous of that, because I do believe that everyone is just on their own journey. And I also am not the type of woman that's like has set a timeline of like needing to have children and things like that. So I think I've always been flexible when it comes to my timeline. But at the same time, it's like, oh, is it my time? Is my time in 10 years? Do I have a time? So I feel like that's just the things that are going on in my mind. Like, what is God's plan for me? And how do I get there? And how do I enjoy the waiting?
That's a good point. How do I enjoy the waiting? Because the waiting can make us impatient. Go a little crazy. That's a good line.
That's
right
funny.
there.
Yeah.
Like
I would say probably the first one, like, why do I want to be in a relationship? Yeah, I think, again, kind of going back to what I said earlier, I think when I viewed relationships in the past, it was more from a selfish perspective. So I think I'm really trying to shift my focus now as to what can I do for somebody else? Like, how can I serve somebody else and to support somebody else and walk through life with them. And ultimately, pursue like God's purpose for my life, for His life, for our lives together. So I think, I just think like, why do I want to be in a relationship in general? Like, what is the actual purpose of a relationship, of a marriage? And so I think I've just been reflecting on that a lot more recently.
Nice. That's awesome. That's awesome. And I know that, Lauren, you mentioned this verse before. Proverbs 4:23 says, above all else, guard your heart, for everything that you do flows from it, right? So if our hearts affect everything, our decisions, our habits, our direction, then it's worth guarding it with wisdom. Okay? Last but not least, so this one is very uncomfortable, but it matters a lot. It matters so much. What do your people, right, your circle of influence, so your parents, your mentors, your spiritual leaders, your good friends, actually think? Right? God places people around us for a reason. I truly believe that, right? So sometimes their peace or concern can often affirm or challenge our emotions, right? The things that we're feeling. And I believe that if someone is pulling you away from Christ, no matter how charming they are, they're not God's best for you. So let's reflect on these 2 questions. Have you ever been in a situation where your community or your circle of influence saw something that you didn't?
Yeah.
You want to expand a little more on that?
How should I expand? I definitely have been in a situation where a couple of my friends, talked to me about someone that I was talking to, and they just, for XYZ reasons, just didn't think that it was a good match. But I think at the time I was like, no, I want to see for myself, like I want to give everyone a shot, and not judge them based off of other people's opinions, but judge for myself. And so ultimately, obviously things ended. So I think looking back now, I would probably definitely do something different and maybe take the wisdom from the people that were in my life at that time. Just because, again, they can see things from a different lens and perspective that you may not, because you're in it and so you're so caught up in the emotions. So I definitely took away some good lessons from that. But yeah.
Last question. What does spiritual alignment really mean to you in a relationship? And this is in relation to your faith and what you believe and the other person believes. How important is this for you when you think about that potential person that is going to be your partner in the future?
Mm-hmm. I really didn't think it was that important, but I think more recently I discovered that it's actually quite important. I've talked to some really, really sweet people that that aren't from the same denomination as us. And I think before I was like, oh yeah, like it's fine, it's okay, like, we can make it work. But I think as the deeper that I would get into conversations and getting to know these men or people, men. I don't want to make it seem like I'm talking to 30 people. These individuals. I realized that it's actually a bigger issue than I maybe thought it was, just because, especially if you want to have kids in the future, it really does play into all of those decisions and things like that. So I think, being spiritually aligned, as I continue to progress, I realize it's quite important. And I think that it plays into the idea of being equally yoked with somebody. Mm-hmm. How even though if you're both Christians, you can still be unequally yoked with, two of you being Christians. So I think, that's something that I realized that is very important for me.
Like who I am is my faith. Everything about my decision making and how I choose to live my life is surrounded in my faith. And so for me to even be able to form a connection with someone, they have to be kind of on the same page. You don't have to necessarily be maybe on the same level that I am on in terms of perhaps knowledge of the scriptures or some more complicated topics, but you certainly have to possess an interest and a desire to have that knowledge, because it's a big part of my life. I talk about it all the time. You can ask my friends. I'm always talking about those types of things. And so if I couldn't talk about those things, for me, that would literally sever my connection with that person, because that's a part of my life and I want that to be a part of my partner's life too. So your spiritual life, the two people being together, you gotta be on the same page, because it's life. It's your life, Yeah.
Even from the context of people have different versions of what modesty looks like for them, or what activities they are okay with versus not okay with.
Sure.
There's so many different things that play into that. And I think it's not that it's a deal breaker, but it just makes things a lot harder if you're okay going out wearing something that is maybe a little bit, quite revealing versus the other person is not, Yeah. So I think, it's actually quite important. And all that I think stems from your spiritual walk and the convictions that you receive from the Holy Spirit. So I think it actually encompasses almost the entirety of your relationship.
Yeah.
So
Excellent. Ladies, thank you for your time. It was awesome hearing your thoughts about...
Anytime.
Anytime. We love these conversations. You know what? I'm going to put you on the spot really quick, because our viewers and listeners, they may be wondering if Lauren and Ashley are available or not. So if you guys want to share... You guys are turning a little bit red. It's okay.
Well, you know what I always say, Jose.
What do you always say, Ashley?
You're single until you're married.
Okay.
Yes, that's a good answer. You're single until you're married.
No wedding band on my fingers, so I guess that means I'm single.
Okay.
I'll go with that response as well.
Okay, awesome. All right. So to everybody listening, take heart. You're not late. You don't need to chase anything. God's timing is perfect. And His will for you is the best thing that you can pursue. And the right relationship, I believe, it won't feel forced, confusing, or rushed. So He's not just preparing somebody for you, but He's preparing you to love well as well. So thank you for being here once again, Lauren and Ashley. And thank you for being here as well. Mikey, the man behind the camera. Thank you so much, Mikey. God bless you, everybody, and we'll see you in the next episode. Take care.
See you guys.